My name is Emma Richardson, 32, a marketing manager in Boston. I've always been the responsible one in my family. This Christmas, I found myself alone with takeout after my family claimed they were too broke to celebrate. Then my sister's live stream popped up revealing a luxury party at my parents' house. Days later, my father called asking for $3,800. That's when I made the hardest decision of my life. If you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect, share where you're watching from and hit subscribe, because this Christmas story changed everything for me. Growing up in rural Pennsylvania shaped me in ways I'm still discovering. Our small town of Millbrook had exactly one traffic light, 3 churches, and a community where everyone knew your business before you did. My parents, Jack and Linda Richardson, worked hard, but money was always tight. Dad jumped between construction jobs, while Mom waitressed at the local diner. My siblings and I understood early that luxuries weren't part of our vocabulary. I was the middle child sandwiched between my older sister Megan and younger brother Tyler. Megan was the pretty one with natural charm that got her out of chores and into the popular crowd. Tyler was the baby coddled and protected, especially after his childhood asthma diagnosis. And me, I was the reliable one, the straight-A student who helped Mom with dinner and made sure Tyler took his medication. School became my refuge and ticket out. While Megan dreamed of marrying rich, and Tyler played video games, I studied until midnight and worked part-time at the library. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Sanchez, was the first person who told me I could aim higher than community college. With her help, I secured a scholarship to Boston University. The day I left for college was the first time I saw genuine worry on my parents' faces. Not because they'd miss me, though, I'm sure on some level they would, but because they were losing their reliable helper. "Who's going to keep things organized around here?" Mom joked, but her laughter didn't reach her eyes. College was transformative. I discovered marketing was the perfect blend of creativity and strategy for my analytical mind. Internships led to connections, and by graduation, I had 3 job offers. I chose a mid-sized marketing firm in Boston that offered growth potential over immediate salary. It was the right choice. Within 5 years, I had climbed to senior marketing manager with a salary that seemed astronomical compared to my parents' combined income. The first call for financial help came during my second year at the firm. Dad's truck needed repairs, and without it, he couldn't get to work. "It's just temporary, Emmy," he promised. "Just until the Henderson project pays out." The $2,300 I sent was more than a month's rent for me, but it felt good to help. Dad sent a photo of himself beside the fixed truck with a thumbs up. 6 months later, Megan called in tears. Her landlord was threatening eviction over 3 months of unpaid rent. "I lost my job and Jake left me," she sobbed, referring to her latest boyfriend. "I'll pay you back as soon as I find something new." The $1,800 I transferred strained my savings, but family helps family, right? Then came Tyler's medical emergency. Without insurance and working minimum wage at a gas station, his asthma-related hospitalization left him with $4,200 in bills. "The collection agencies won't stop calling," he explained, voice shaking. "I'm thinking of filing bankruptcy." I couldn't let that happen to my little brother. Mom's turn came next. Credit card debt had spiraled while she helped Megan get back on her feet. "We never wanted to burden you," she insisted, though the $3,000 request suggested otherwise. "You're the only one doing well, sweetheart. We're so proud of how far you've come." Each time I helped, the gratitude flowed effusively, accompanied by promises of repayment that never materialized. Instead, those promises morphed into more requests. Dad's roof, Mom's dental work, Megan's car, Tyler's rent. The amounts grew larger, the emergencies more frequent, the timelines more urgent. I tried setting boundaries. "I need to build my own savings," I explained during a Sunday call. "I can't be the family bank forever." "We're not asking forever," Dad replied, his voice taking on that wounded tone I'd come to dread. "Just until things turn around. Don't forget where you came from, Emma." That particular guilt trip worked like a charm. Who was I to enjoy financial security while my family struggled? Wasn't my success meant to lift all of us? These thoughts plagued me as I approved another transfer, watching my retirement savings dwindle. My friend and coworker Rachel noticed the pattern before I fully admitted it to myself. "They call when they need money, not when they want to know how you're doing," she observed over lunch. "When was the last time they visited you in Boston?" The answer was never. In 7 years, not one family member had made the 6-hour drive to see my life, my apartment, my world. I always went home for holidays bearing gifts and listening to updates about people I barely remembered from high school. Despite the growing resentment, I still looked forward to Christmas with my family. It was the one time of year when financial tensions seemed to fade beneath twinkling lights and Mom's apple pie. This year would be no different, I told myself as November ended. I'd fly home, bring thoughtful gifts, and enjoy the warmth of family tradition. I couldn't have imagined how wrong I would be. The Christmas season in Boston transforms the city into something magical. The Common glitters with thousands of light shop windows, display elaborate winter wonderlands, and even the most hurried business people seem to slow their pace. I had been looking forward to sharing some of this magic with my family, carefully selecting gifts that showed how well I knew them despite the distance. For Dad, I found a vintage book about classic cars, his lifelong passion. Mom would receive a cashmere sweater in her favorite shade of blue, far nicer than anything she'd buy herself. Megan's gift was a high-end makeup set from a brand she constantly mentioned wanting to try but couldn't afford. And for Tyler, I had splurged on the latest gaming console he had been talking about for months. My vacation request had been approved back in September, giving me a generous 10 days away from the office. My flight was booked for December 22nd, returning January 2nd, allowing me to help with preparations and stay through New Year's. I had even arranged for my neighbor to water my plants and check on my apartment while I was away. Everything was set until my phone rang on December 15th, just a week before my planned departure. Seeing Mom on the caller ID, I answered with a smile, expecting to discuss final holiday arrangements. "Emma, honey." Mom's voice already had that tremor that signaled bad news. "I don't know how to tell you this, but we're having some serious problems here." My stomach tightened as I sat down on my couch. "What's going on? Is everyone okay?" "We're healthy, thank God, but..." She paused dramatically. "Your father's hours got cut again, and Megan lost her job last month. With Tyler still paying off those medical bills, we're just drowning here." I closed my eyes, already anticipating where this was heading. "I'm sorry to hear that. How can I help?" The sob that came through the phone sounded rehearsed, though I immediately felt guilty for thinking so. "We can't afford Christmas this year, Emma. The heating bill alone is killing us, and there's nothing left for a tree or dinner, let alone gifts. We're all pooling what little we have just for groceries." "But I'll be there," I said, confused. "I've already bought gifts and booked my flight." "That's just it, sweetheart. We're ashamed for you to see the house like this. No decorations, no Christmas dinner. Meanwhile, you're living in luxury in your Boston apartment. It might be better if you just stayed there this year." The words stung more than she probably realized. Luxury. My one-bedroom apartment was nice but hardly luxurious. I worked 60-hour weeks for what I had. "Mom, I don't care about decorations. I want to be with family." "Well, there's something else." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Your father didn't want me to ask, but since you won't be spending money on a flight now, we could really use some help with bills, just to get through the winter." Before I could respond, she rushed to add, "Think of it as your Christmas gift to us. Much more practical than those store-bought things anyway." I sat in stunned silence for a moment. They weren't just canceling Christmas. They were asking me to convert my gifts and travel expenses into cash for them. "Let me think about it," I managed to say. "Can I call you back tomorrow?" "Of course, honey. We love you. We're just trying to survive here." The call ended and I stared at my phone, a mix of emotions washing over me. Disappointment about the canceled holiday plans, worry about their financial situation, and that familiar undercurrent of resentment that I tried so hard to suppress. The next day, Dad called. This was unusual, as he typically left the emotional conversations to Mom. "Emmy," he started using my childhood nickname. Your mother told me about your talk yesterday. I didn't want her bothering you with our problems, but since she did, it's okay, Dad. I want to know what's happening. He cleared his throat. Things are worse than she let on. The bank's been sending foreclosure warnings. If we can't make a payment soon, we could lose the house. My childhood home with its creaky porch swing and the height markers penciled on the kitchen door frame in foreclosure, the thought was unbearable. The gifts you bought, he continued, could you return them? That money would help us more right now. And instead of flying out, maybe you could send what you'd have spent on the ticket. I felt manipulated but also guilty for feeling that way. Dad, I want to help, but I also want to see you all. We want that too, but not like this. Not with your mother crying every night about bills. Christmas should be happy and we just can't fake it this year. After another hour of conversation that left me emotionally drained, I agreed to their request. I returned the carefully selected gifts, canceled my flight, and sent $500 to my parents' account, more than covering what I'd recoup from the returns. The confirmation text from Dad was brief. Thank you, Emmy. This means everything. With my holiday plans demolished, I faced the prospect of Christmas alone in Boston. Most of my friends had already left town to visit their own families. Rachel invited me to join her family celebration in Chicago, but last-minute flights were prohibitively expensive. I'll be fine, I assured her. I'll treat myself to a nice dinner and catch up on reading. As Christmas approached, I tried to salvage some holiday spirit. I bought a small tree for my apartment, hung a few ornaments, and wrapped a gift for myself to open Christmas morning, a tradition my grandmother had started years ago. Everyone deserves something to unwrap, she used to say. I stocked my kitchen with ingredients for a special breakfast and reserved a table for one at an upscale restaurant that was staying open for Christmas dinner. It wouldn't be the family Christmas I'd expected, but I was determined to make it pleasant nonetheless. What I couldn't have known was how that solitary Christmas would become the catalyst for the most difficult decision of my adult life. Christmas morning arrived with a gentle snowfall that coated Boston in pristine white. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated its beauty, but waking up alone in my apartment when I should have been in my childhood bedroom felt profoundly wrong. I checked my phone immediately, finding brief Merry Christmas texts from Mom, Dad, and Tyler. Nothing from Megan, but that wasn't unusual. I responded to each with cheerful messages asking how they were doing and mentioning the beautiful snow in Boston. Their replies came hours later, short and seemingly rushed. Merry Christmas, honey. Keeping warm. Love you. Mom, thanks X for the help. Merry Xmas. Dad, Merry Christmas, sis. Miss you. Tyler. No details about their day. No questions about mine. I told myself they were just busy managing their difficult situation, but the brevity stung nonetheless. Determined not to wallow, I followed through with my self-care plans. I took a long, hot shower, using the expensive bath products I usually saved for special occasions. I put on a new outfit I'd bought for Christmas Day with my family, unwilling to let it sit unworn in my closet. The emerald green sweater brought out the color in my eyes, a feature my grandmother always said was my best. In the kitchen, I prepared the special breakfast I'd planned: French toast with fresh berries, crispy bacon, and coffee brewed from the premium beans I'd splurged on. I set my small dining table with the good dishes, lit a candle, and played Christmas music through my apartment speakers. The effort to create a festive atmosphere helped, but each bite tasted like loneliness. I couldn't stop thinking about Christmas mornings past, with Tyler shaking everyone awake at dawn, Mom's cinnamon rolls filling the house with their sweet scent, and even Megan momentarily dropping her cool exterior to exclaim over a particularly thoughtful gift. After breakfast, I unwrapped my self-gift, a novel by my favorite author that I'd been saving for a quiet moment. I settled on the couch with a throw blanket and tried to lose myself in the story, but concentration proved difficult. Every few paragraphs, my mind drifted back to Pennsylvania and what my family might be doing. Were they huddled around the space heater Mom had mentioned? Had they managed any kind of Christmas dinner I considered calling, but hesitated, not wanting to interrupt whatever makeshift celebration they might have cobbled together? By early afternoon, cabin fever set in. I bundled up in my warmest coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, and ventured out for a walk. The streets were quieter than usual, but I wasn't the only one out. Couples walked hand in hand, and families with children carried sleds toward the common. I found myself following them, drawn to the sounds of laughter and joy. The common was transformed into a winter playground with children building snowmen and sliding down small hills on plastic sleds and flattened cardboard boxes. Parents watched from the sidelines, snapping photos and calling out encouragements. One family in particular caught my attention, a mother and father with 3 children who appeared close in age to what Megan, Tyler, and I had once been. They worked together building an elaborate snow fort, the parents just as engaged as the children. The father lifted his youngest to place a flag at the top, and their collective cheer when it stood firm brought an unexpected tear to my eye. That could have been us, I thought. Not the specific activity, perhaps, but the togetherness, the shared joy. When had my family stopped functioning as a unit and become a network of financial transactions? As the afternoon waned, I made my way to Hastings Restaurant, where I had my dinner reservation. The upscale establishment had created a special Christmas menu, and the hostess led me to a small table by the window. I noticed a few other solo diners scattered throughout the restaurant, but mostly couples and families occupied the tables. "Just one tonight?" the waiter asked with a kind smile that couldn't quite hide his pity. "Yes, just me," I confirmed, sitting straighter in my chair. The meal was objectively delicious prime rib cooked to perfection, with roasted vegetables and a glass of excellent Cabernet. I tried to savor each bite, to be present in the moment, rather than dwelling on what might have been. The couple at the next table toasted with champagne, their wedding rings catching the light, while across the room, a family of 4 played some sort of word game between courses, their laughter punctuating the restaurant's soft background music. I finished my dessert, a decadent chocolate torte, and settled the bill with a generous tip, my small contribution to someone else's holiday. Outside darkness had fallen, and the Christmas lights seemed to glow more intensely against the night sky. I walked slowly back to my apartment, in no hurry to return to solitude. Once home, I kicked off my boots and changed into comfortable loungewear. The evening stretched before me, long and empty. I considered watching a Christmas movie, but worried it would only highlight my aloneness. Instead, I opened my laptop to check emails and mindlessly scroll through social media. My Facebook feed was filled with Christmas photos, friends posing by trees and dinner tables laden with food. I liked a few and left generic "Merry Christmas" comments, the social media equivalent of small talk. Then I switched to Instagram, where the algorithm served me more of the same, a parade of perfect holidays that made my solitary celebrations seem even more pathetic by comparison. I was about to close the app when a notification appeared. "Megan Richardson 94 is live now." My sister rarely used Instagram's live stream feature. Curious about what could prompt her to broadcast on Christmas evening, I tapped the notification. What I saw next would change everything. The live stream buffered for a moment before revealing a scene so unexpected that I initially thought Instagram's algorithm had made a mistake. This couldn't be my sister's broadcast. But there was Megan's face, flushed with laughter, her blonde hair styled in elegant waves I'd never seen her wear before. She was holding her phone at arm's length, capturing not just herself, but the backdrop of what was unmistakably my parents' living room. Except I hardly recognized it. Gone was the worn furniture and faded wallpaper I remembered. Instead, the room glowed with warm light from what appeared to be new fixtures. A massive Christmas tree dominated one corner, at least 7 feet tall and professionally decorated with a color-coordinated theme of silver and blue ornaments. Twinkling white lights wrapped its branches, and beneath it sat a mountain of wrapped presents, their paper matching the tree's elegant scheme. "And this is what happens when you let Mom pick the tree," Megan was saying to her viewers, panning around to show more of the transformed space. "Dad wanted the smaller one, but Mom said Christmas comes once a year, so why not go all out?" The camera moved to reveal our mother, but not as I'd imagined her just hours earlier, huddled in a cold house, worried about heating bills. Mom was wearing a new-looking red sweater with a sparkling snowflake brooch, her hair freshly colored and styled, holding what appeared to be a glass of champagne. She waved at the camera with her free hand. "Megan, stop with the phone and help me bring out the appetizers," she called. But she was smiling broadly, clearly enjoying the attention. The knot in my stomach tightened as Megan walked through the house, providing a virtual tour to her followers. The dining room table was set with the good china, the stuff reserved for special occasions, plus new crystal glasses I'd never seen before. A ham gleamed at the center of the table, surrounded by side dishes that looked straight out of a cooking magazine. "We're about to feast like kings," Megan announced, zooming in on the spread. "Mom's been cooking all day." All day. The same day she'd supposedly been too financially strapped to afford Christmas dinner. The same day she'd sent me a terse text about keeping warm when I'd asked how things were going. The camera panned again, and I caught sight of my father in the background, not looking worried or stressed, but lounging comfortably in what appeared to be a brand new recliner, watching a large flat-screen TV I didn't recognize. He was wearing a button-down shirt I'd never seen, looking more put together than the construction worker I knew. Beside him sat Tyler, focused on what looked like the very gaming system I'd originally bought him, the one I'd returned at our parents' request to send them cash instead. My hands started to shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. This couldn't be happening. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps a wealthy relative had surprised them. But we didn't have wealthy relatives. Maybe neighbors had pooled resources to help them. But the new furniture and electronics couldn't have appeared overnight. "Hey everyone, say Merry Christmas to my followers," Megan called out, turning the camera back toward the family gathered in the living room. There were even people I didn't recognize, friends or neighbors, joining their celebration. "Merry Christmas," they chorused, raising glasses. "Too bad Emma couldn't make it," one of the unknown guests remarked. "She's the only one missing." My father waved a dismissive hand. "Emma's so uptight these days. Always worried about saving for retirement or whatever. Probably better without her judging everyone's spending." The casual cruelty of his words struck me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe for a moment. "Dad," Megan's voice held a warning, but she was laughing. "Don't say that on my live stream." "What, it's true," he continued, clearly not realizing how many people might be watching. "All she talks about is budgets and financial responsibility. Would have ruined the fun." My mother appeared beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "At least we got another 500 out of her," she said in what she probably thought was a whisper, but came through clearly on the live stream. A few chuckles followed. The room spun around me. $500. My contribution to their supposed emergency had funded this party. The party they hadn't wanted me to know about. The party they had actively lied to keep me from attending. Megan seemed to suddenly realize what was happening and quickly redirected, moving toward the kitchen. "Let's check on those appetizers," she said brightly, but the damage was done. I continued watching, unable to look away from the train wreck of betrayal unfolding on my screen. More details emerged as Megan's live stream continued. Someone mentioned their recent shopping trip to the high-end mall 2 hours away. Tyler showed off his new smartwatch. Mom talked about the catering service that had prepared most of the food, contradicting Megan's earlier claim about Mom cooking all day. Every word was another dagger. The nausea building in my stomach finally forced me to put down the phone and rush to the bathroom, where I was violently ill. Afterward, I sat on the cold tile floor, tears streaming down my face, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. My family hadn't canceled Christmas because they were broke. They'd canceled Christmas because they hadn't wanted me there. And they'd used their fake financial crisis to extract money from me in the process. How many of their emergencies had been real? The car repairs, the medical bills, the rent crises I'd solve. All I'd sent thousands upon thousands of dollars over the years, often at significant personal sacrifice. I picked up my phone again, hands still trembling, and returned to the live stream. It was still going now, showing Megan and her friends opening what appeared to be expensive gifts. My sister was exclaiming over a designer handbag that cost more than what I'd sent my parents for their supposed heating bill. I watched for another half hour, gathering evidence like a detective. No one mentioned financial problems. No one seemed stressed about bills or foreclosure. Instead, they laughed, ate, drank, and celebrated in what appeared to be the most lavish Richardson family Christmas I'd ever seen, one they deliberately excluded me from with calculated lies. Finally, I couldn't take any more. I closed the app and sat in the silence of my apartment, the cheerful Christmas music long since turned off. The betrayal was total and complete. Not just the lie about this Christmas, but the suspicion that they'd been manipulating me for years. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider a possibility that had always lingered at the edges of my consciousness. My family was using me. I wasn't their beloved daughter and sister, who they turned to in genuine need. I was their personal ATM, good for cash withdrawals, but not important enough to include in their celebrations. The realization broke something fundamental inside me, a break I wasn't sure could ever be repaired. The next 3 days passed in a fog of disbelief and grief. I called in sick to work for the first time in years, unable to face video meetings with my puffy, tear-streaked face. My apartment, which had felt lonely on Christmas, now seemed like the only safe space in a world turned upside down. I alternated between numbness and waves of pain so intense they took my breath away. Sleep came in brief, restless intervals, interrupted by dreams of my family laughing at me. Food lost its appeal entirely. I existed on tea and toast all my body could handle. When my phone chimed with texts from my family, I couldn't bring myself to read them, knowing they would continue the charade of a sparse, difficult Christmas. On the second day, Rachel called to check in, worried when I didn't respond to her post-Christmas text. I hadn't planned to tell anyone what happened, but the moment I heard her voice, the whole story poured out of me in a jumbled, tearful confession. "Oh, Emma," she said when I finished. "I'm so sorry they did this to you." "Am I overreacting?" I asked, desperate for perspective. Maybe there's an explanation I'm not seeing. What possible explanation could there be for lying to your face, taking your money, and then mocking you behind your back? Her tone was gentle but firm. "They're treating you like an ATM, not family." The clarity of her assessment hit home. "I've been their emergency fund for years," I admitted. "But I always thought it was because they really needed help." "And maybe sometimes they did," Rachel acknowledged. "But this Christmas scam shows they're perfectly willing to manipulate you. That's not love, Emma. That's exploitation." We talked for over an hour, Rachel helping me process not just the immediate betrayal, but the pattern of behavior it revealed. By the end of the call, I felt stronger, my resolve beginning to form around a difficult truth. Something needed to change. "What are you going to do?" Rachel asked finally. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But I can't keep doing this." I spent the third day thinking and planning. Rather than wallow in hurt, I channeled my emotions into action. I reviewed my bank statements from the past 5 years, tallying every transfer to family members. The total made me gasp, $23,450, nearly $24,000 I could have used for a down payment on a condo or invested for my future. More importantly, I examined the patterns. The requests always came just before I received my annual bonus or after I mentioned a promotion. They had an uncanny knack for calling when I was most likely to have extra funds available. This wasn't random need. This was calculated timing. I decided not to confront them immediately. Instead, I would wait and observe, let them continue their performance to see how far they would take it. I returned to work, throwing myself into year-end projects as a distraction from the ache in my chest. My family's texts continued, still maintaining the fiction of their financial distress. "Making soup from Christmas leftovers," Mom wrote, "stretching every dollar." The blatant lie made me wince, remembering the catered feast I'd witnessed. On the 4th day after Christmas, my father called. Seeing his name on my screen, I took a deep breath before answering, curious what new emergency he would invent. "Emmy," he greeted, using the nickname that once made me feel specially loved, but now sounded like the opening move in a con. "How was your Christmas, sweetheart?" "Quiet," I answered truthfully. "How was yours?" "Oh, you know," he said vaguely. "We made the best of it. Your mother managed to put together a small dinner. We missed you." Each lie twisted the knife deeper, but I kept my voice neutral. "I missed you too." "Listen, Emmy, He continued, his tone shifting to what I now recognized as his asking for money voice. I hate to start the new year with problems, but we've got a situation here. What kind of situation? I asked, already knowing money would be involved. The roof is leaking. Bad. With the winter storm coming this weekend, we need to get it fixed immediately, or we could have serious water damage. I closed my eyes, mentally noting that the weather forecast for their area showed no storms approaching. That sounds serious, I said. The roofer came today. Says it'll be $3,800 to patch it properly. He paused, letting the figure hang in the air. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't an emergency. Your mother is so worried she can't sleep. $3,800, more than 7 times what I'd sent for Christmas. I remained silent, letting him fill the gap. I know it's a lot, he rushed to add, but you're doing so well with your fancy marketing job. Probably spend that much on shoes in a month. He chuckled as if this were a joke we both understood. Actually, Dad, I don't. That's more than a month's rent for me. Well, he said, sounding flustered by my directness. Family helps family, right? You're the only one of my kids with real money. And after all we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? The question slipped out before I could stop it. We raised you. Put food on the table, clothes on your back. I've been financially independent since I was 18, I reminded him. And I've sent you over $20,000 in the past 5 years. There was a beat of silence before he responded, his tone now defensive. We've had hard times. You know that. Not everyone can have a cushy office job. I let the barb pass and instead asked calmly, when is this storm supposed to hit? What? The winter storm you mentioned. When is it forecasted to arrive? This weekend. Sunday, I think. The roofer says we need to get it fixed before then. That's interesting. I said, my voice still measured, because I just checked the weather for Millbrook and it shows clear skies for the next 10 days. Another pause, longer this time. Well, you know these forecasts change all the time, he blustered. Can't trust those weather people. Just like I apparently can't trust my family, I said quietly. What's that supposed to mean? It was time. The moment of truth I'd been rehearsing in my mind. It means I saw Megan's Christmas livestream, Dad. The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost hear him calculating his next move, weighing whether to deny everything or attempt damage control. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I saw the party, Dad. The tree, the presents, the food. I heard what you said about me. What Mom said about getting another $500 out of me. That wasn't... You misunderstood, he stammered. I understand perfectly now, I interrupted. And I have just one thing to say to you, I don't fund liars. The silence that followed my declaration was profound. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, my father seemed at a complete loss for words. When he finally spoke, his voice had transformed from the confident manipulator to a man scrambling to regain control. What are you talking about? He attempted, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his awareness that the game was up. The Christmas party, Dad. The one you told me wasn't happening because you were too broke. I saw it all on Megan's live stream. He forced a laugh. That was just a small gathering. Nothing fancy. Some neighbors brought food over, feeling sorry for us. The ease with which he pivoted to a new lie was almost impressive. Almost. So the new furniture appeared by magic, the catered food, the professionally decorated tree, the expensive gifts. I kept my voice steady, refusing to match the anger building in his. You're exaggerating what you saw. It wasn't like that. I watched for over an hour, Dad. I saw everything. His strategy shifted again. Fine. So we had some people over. We didn't want you to feel bad that you couldn't make it home, so we downplayed things. You told me you couldn't afford to heat the house or buy groceries, I reminded him. You asked me to send money instead of coming home. Well, things turned around last minute, he insisted. A job came through for me, and we decided to celebrate. It happened after we talked to you. I checked the date on Megan's previous Instagram posts, which showed the tree and decorations had been up for at least 2 weeks. That's not true, and we both know it. His tone changed again, this time to righteous indignation. You've always been so selfish, Emma, keeping track of every dollar like some kind of accountant. Family helps family without counting the cost. The unfairness of this accusation stung, but I recognized it for what it was, a desperate attempt to regain the upper hand by making me feel guilty. It had worked countless times before. Not today. I've sent you over $20,000 in 5 years, Dad. Was any of it actually for emergencies, or was it all for luxury purchases you hid from me? You're always so dramatic, he deflected. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, with accusations. What exactly have you done for me that justifies lying and stealing? I challenged. Stealing. His voice rose sharply. We raised you. We put you through college. I had a scholarship. I worked part-time jobs. I took out student loans that I'm still paying off. We gave you a home, values, a family. And now you've shown me exactly what those family values are worth. He switched tactics again, his voice suddenly soft and wounded. Emmy, honey, you're upset. I understand. But you're blowing this out of proportion. Come home this weekend, and we can talk about it face to face. Your mother misses you terribly. The manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly. The nicknames, the guilt trips, the artificial crisis, followed by the request for reconciliation that would inevitably lead to another financial demand. No, I said simply. No, what do you mean? No. I mean, no, I won't be coming home. And no, I won't be sending money for a roof repair that doesn't exist. His facade cracked completely. You'll regret this, Emma. When you need your family someday and we're not there for you, you'll remember this conversation. The threat might have wounded me deeply just days earlier. Now it merely confirmed what I already knew. Their support was conditional, based entirely on what I could provide for them rather than who I was. Actually, Dad, I think I'll regret the years I spent believing your lies and emptying my bank account to fund your lifestyle. But I won't regret standing up for myself now. This is how you want to start the new year, turning your back on your flesh and blood. This is how I'm choosing to start my new life, one without exploitation disguised as family obligation. You're making a huge mistake, he warned, voice now cold with anger. No, I'm finally correcting one. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call and immediately blocked his number, a decisive action that felt both terrifying and liberating. My hands shook, but my resolve didn't waver. This was only the first step. Over the next hour, I systematically cut off all avenues of contact. I blocked each family member's phone number, removed them from my social media accounts, and set up email filters to automatically archive anything from their addresses. I wasn't ready to read their inevitable attempts at damage control or further manipulation. The process was methodical, but emotionally devastating. Each block felt like severing a limb, painful but necessary for survival. These were the people who had known me my entire life, who featured in nearly every childhood memory. Yet they had deliberately deceived me, taken advantage of my generosity, and excluded me from their celebrations while mocking me behind my back. I reached out to the few remaining connections I shared with my family, distant cousins, and old hometown friends. I sent brief factual messages explaining that I was taking a step back from contact with my immediate family and would appreciate privacy during this difficult time. Most responded with confusion, but I offered no further details, unwilling to drag others into the situation. Finally, I contacted a lawyer who specialized in financial harassment cases. While I had freely given the money to my family, I wanted to understand my options if they escalated their demands or attempted to use other means to pressure me financially. The consultation was expensive, but gave me peace of mind and a clear plan if things got worse. That night I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the physical reminders of the life I'd built for myself. My diploma hanging on the wall, photos of friends I'd made in Boston, books that had shaped my thinking, a space that was entirely mine, funded by my work and reflecting my taste. For the first time, I saw my independence not as isolation, but as strength. I had created this life despite my family's attempts to drain my resources. Imagine what I could build now that I was free of their constant demands. The grief was still there, a dull ache beneath my breastbone. I wasn't naive enough to think that cutting contact would immediately heal the wounds of betrayal. But alongside the grief was something new and fragile relief. The weight of responsibility for my family's financial well-being had been lifted. The constant anxiety about the next emergency call had vanished. As I prepared for bed, I noticed something remarkable. My shoulders, perpetually tight with stress, had relaxed. My breathing came easier. For the first time in years, I fell asleep without worrying about anyone but myself and slept through the night without interruption. It was the first peaceful night of my new life, and despite the pain, I welcomed it wholeheartedly. The first 2 weeks after cutting contact with my family were the hardest. I moved through my daily routines like a sleepwalker, going through the motions while processing waves of conflicting emotions. Grief would suddenly overwhelm me in the grocery store, guilt ambushed me during morning coffee, and anger burned hot when memories of the Christmas deception surfaced unexpectedly. I'd expected my family to respect my decision for at least a short time, but I underestimated their determination. When they discovered I'd blocked their numbers, the flying monkeys descended. My mother's sister called ostensibly to check in, but quickly pivoting to how heartbroken my mother was. A childhood friend from Millbrook messaged that my father had lost weight from the stress of our misunderstanding. Tyler's girlfriend emailed about his renewed asthma attacks, supposedly triggered by worry over our estrangement. Each messenger carried the same subtext: I was hurting innocent people with my selfishness. I was overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. I was tearing apart a loving family over one mistake. The pressure almost worked. During a particularly low moment, I found myself with my phone in hand, finger hovering over the button that would unblock my mother's number. What if they really were suffering? What if I was being cruel and unforgiving? Rachel saved me from backsliding. Over lunch in the office break room, she listened to my doubts before asking a simple question. If they're so devastated about losing their relationship with you, why aren't they apologizing? Why are they sending other people to make you feel guilty instead of acknowledging what they did? The clarity of her observation broke through my fog of uncertainty. She was right. Not one of the messages relayed through others contained an admission of wrongdoing or an apology. They were attempting to manipulate me back into compliance without addressing the fundamental breach of trust. With Rachel's encouragement, I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Dr. Winters had a warm office with comfortable chairs and a no-nonsense approach that suited me perfectly. In our first session, she listened to my story without judgment before offering a perspective that shifted my understanding. What you're describing, Emma, sounds like financial exploitation within a family system. The dynamics you've outlined fit a pattern where one family member is designated as the provider and systematically drained of resources to support others. But families are supposed to help each other, I protested weakly. Healthy families support each other reciprocally with respect for boundaries and honest communication, she clarified. What you've described is one-sided and deceptive. Over the weeks that followed, Dr. Winters helped me untangle the complex web of family dynamics that had led to my position as the family ATM. We explored my need for approval, my misplaced guilt about achieving financial stability, while my family struggled, and the subtle ways they had conditioned me to respond to their demands. Most importantly, she validated my decision to create distance. Boundaries aren't punishments, she explained. They're expressions of self-respect. You're not cutting them off to hurt them. You're protecting yourself from further harm. As January turned to February, I began building what Dr. Winters called my chosen family. I reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with while focusing on work and family obligations. I accepted invitations to social events I would have previously declined to save money just in case someone needed help. I joined a hiking group that explored trails around New England on weekends. Through these connections, I discovered the difference between giving from obligation and giving from joy. When a friend from the hiking group mentioned struggling with car troubles, I offered to drive her to trails until she could afford repairs. The gratitude in her eyes contained none of the entitlement I'd grown accustomed to from my family. When she insisted on buying my coffee and bringing homemade trail mix as thanks, I realized this was what healthy reciprocity felt like. At Dr. Winter's suggestion, I started a financial independence journal. Each day, I recorded my spending decisions, noting which ones were made freely for my own benefit versus choices influenced by guilt or obligation. The pattern was revealing, showing how deeply my financial habits had been shaped by my role as family provider. I began redirecting the money I would have sent to my family into a freedom fund, watching with satisfaction as it grew. The hardest test came in late March on my mother's birthday. For years, I'd sent extravagant gifts and called for a long conversation, where I would listen to updates about everyone in the family except me. This year, her birthday arrived with the weight of expectation. Would breaking tradition make me the villain they already believed me to be? I brought the dilemma to my therapy session. Dr. Winters asked, "What would acknowledge the day in a way that respects your boundaries but doesn't ignore the significance of the relationship?" After careful consideration, I sent a simple birthday card with a brief message, "Wishing you well on your birthday, Emma." No money, no gifts, no opportunity for manipulation. It was the most honest communication I'd had with my mother in years. The response came through my cousin, who called to tell me my mother had cried over the coldness of my card. "She thought you'd use her birthday to apologize and come back to the family," my cousin reported. The lack of self-awareness was staggering. Even now, my mother expected me to apologize to her despite her role in the Christmas deception. The guilt trip failed to land, serving instead as confirmation that my boundaries were necessary. By summer, the attempts at contact had dwindled. My family had apparently accepted that their usual tactics wouldn't work this time. I occasionally heard updates through the grapevine. Megan had moved in with a new boyfriend, Tyler had changed jobs again, my parents were planning a vacation to Florida. Life continued for them as it did for me, but on separate paths. The distance allowed me to see patterns I'd been too close to recognize before. The financial emergencies that had punctuated our relationship for years weren't random misfortunes, but consequences of chronic financial mismanagement and prioritizing immediate desires over long-term stability. My assistance hadn't helped them build security. It had enabled continued dysfunction. As fall approached, I made a significant decision. The money I'd been saving in my Freedom Fund had grown substantial enough for a down payment on a small condo. After years of renting, I would become a homeowner, investing in my future rather than funding my family's present. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment tinged with sadness. This milestone should have been celebrated with family, but I had learned the hard way that some achievements are better honored with those who truly support your growth, even if they aren't related by blood. My first Christmas after the cutoff arrived with less dread than I'd anticipated. Rachel invited me to join her family's celebration, but I chose a different path. I hosted a chosen family dinner in my new condo, inviting friends who for various reasons weren't traveling to see relatives. We cooked together, exchanged modest but thoughtful gifts, and created new traditions that honored our connections without obligation or manipulation. As we sat around my dining table sharing stories and laughter, I realized I'd found what had been missing in my biological family: mutual respect, genuine care, and relationships based on who we were rather than what we could provide each other. The journey from that solitary Christmas to this gathering of authentic connections hadn't been easy. The grief of family estrangement still visited occasionally, particularly during milestones and holidays. But alongside it grew a profound understanding of three essential truths that had transformed my life. First, true family is defined by respect and honesty, not blood. The people who celebrate your successes without jealousy, who offer support without keeping score, and who tell you truths, even when they're difficult to hear, those are your real family regardless of genetic connection. Second, financial generosity should come from love, not obligation or manipulation. Giving under duress or guilt isn't generosity at all. It's exploitation. Real giving flows freely and joyfully, without expectation of return or fear of rejection if the giving stops. Third, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for well-being. By clearly defining what I would and wouldn't accept in relationships, I hadn't just protected my bank account, I'd protected my spirit from the slow erosion of repeated betrayals. These lessons came at a high cost, but as I looked around at the genuine connections I'd fostered in the aftermath of loss, I knew the price had been worth paying. The empty chair at my family's Christmas table had made space for a full life built on authenticity rather than obligation. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from toxic family relationships? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more about navigating complicated family dynamics and building healthy boundaries. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to break harmful patterns even when it hurts. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may you find the courage to honor your own worth in all your relationships.